Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Scientific Biography. Today, we're going to be talking about Louis Pasteur, who is from France, as you can tell from the name, and he's known for molecules and milk. All right, and I made a Batman joke there, right? Molecules and milk, science man. Is that a Batman? In case you're uncultured and don't understand Batman references. So who was Louis Pasteur? He's not Batman. What he was, though, he was born in France, like I mentioned. He lived from 1822 to 1895, so a nice long life for the 19th century. He was a microbiologist and a chemist, and he's known for his advances in vaccination and fermentation, as well as inventing, or at least starting the process of inventing, pasteurization. So those are the three main things that he's known for, but he also did a lot of other things as well. So what exactly is pasteurization? It's something that you might be familiar with because you see it on things that you consume all the time, like milk, fruit juices, stuff like that. You might see this has been pasteurized. You might not actually know what that means. Well, pasteurization is just the process that packaged foods are treated with mild heat. So basically what happens is they take all the milk that you're going to drink, right, and they warm it up to a certain temperature. It's usually not very high. And that eliminates the pathogens and kind of extends the shelf life of the product. So that's why you can have milk come from the farm to the grocery store and then to you and have it last a while after you receive it. It's because of this pasteurization that they do. It also deactivates organisms and enzymes that cause spoilage. So there are different organisms and different enzymes that are in milk or juice or stuff like that cause it to spoil more rapidly. But if you heat up these things, they denature because they're proteins. And when those proteins denature, they don't actually cause spoilage anymore. So that's also part of the reason we use pasteurization nowadays. So what are some other things that Louis Pasteur did other than do pasteurization, right? The thing that's named after him. He was the one to create the first vaccines for rabies and anthrax. So those two diseases, those two things that are pretty deadly or can be deadly, he invented the first vaccines for them. His discoveries and his work with disease and vaccinations supported the germ theory of disease. So before Pasteur, people thought that disease kind of spontaneously came into existence, right? Like all of a sudden you just became sick and there was no specific reason as to why, it just happened. But it turns out, right, the growing support for this theory that there's these microscopic organisms that cause you to get sick is the germ theory of disease. And a lot of his work supports that theory. So the reason that it's widely accepted today is partially due to Pasteur and then people who followed him up. He also disproved, right, the theory, which I just talked about, right, of spontaneous generation, showing that microorganisms do not just spontaneously generate on their own. Basically, he set up an experiment where he said, okay, here's all this different stuff, all right, and if we just let it sit there, it's not going to create a microorganism. It's going to stay just the different pieces that could become a microorganism. And then once he helped and aided it along, it became a microorganism, right? So microorganisms don't just spontaneously generate, they do need help to form originally, right, from nothing, right? Because, microorganisms can, of course, reproduce themselves, but if you're trying to generate microorganisms out of non-organic matter, it needs help, whether that be, which we've learned, a lightning strike, or other things to combine them and make them into a living thing. He also helped discover oxygen as an individual element in one of his experiments. So he didn't discover oxygen necessarily. He's not necessarily credited with it, but he did help in that process. So he did help discover an element, which is a pretty big deal. Thank you so much for watching and learning about Louis Pasteur. Next time, we'll learn about another scientist and their contributions to our knowledge of the world. Please subscribe and ring the bell so you'll know when more content is coming from me. And you can learn more about science or history, because I do a lot of those too. See you later. Have a great day.